After pouring my blood, sweat, and tears into rewatching all 62 episodes of Breaking Bad, it's become crystal clear to me that Walter Hartwell White is one of the most vile villains of all time. And I know they say White has an absence of color, but this White has an absence of morals. So today, we are gonna make him pay. Don't worry, Walt. I'm sure you'll be getting off lightly. I'll be ranking all of his crimes from the petty all the way up to the Heisenberg levels of heinous. The first crime on Walter's rap sheet is actually due to the absence of something white, his tidy whities. You know, from the episode after they deal with Tuco? After strangely disappearing and leaving Skyler and the rest of the family worried sick, Walt has to come up with a way to explain his whereabouts without letting anyone know what he was up to. His idea? A fugue state, and to put his plan into action, he heads to a local store. Basically, to give his lies some truth, Walt humiliates himself. GOAT behavior, if you ask me. Feigning amnesia and an out-of-character fugue state might have worked on the Albuquerque police, but it will not work on us. So for this blatant case of indecent exposure, Mr. White would be given 90 days worth of jail time. Let's at least hope he wasn't in the freezer section, if you get what I mean. When it comes to the word driving in Walter White, it's usually him driving up the price of methamphetamine on every street corner across New Mexico. But when Walt gets behind the wheel of a car, things can get pretty dicey. Like the time he splashed the cash on an expensive Chrysler 300 SRT8.
Illusion fills my head like an empty can. I spent a million lifetimes loving the same man.
Even though Walt has bought himself a speedster, it's actually the good old Pontiac Aztek, which Walt uses to smash the speed limit. The most blatant case of reckless driving is when Walt tries to get to Jesse before he can steal all of his hard-earned cash.
I pistol whipped that melon. He calls ahead till he gave my GPS. How do you like that, G-Thing?
Look, Jesse, I don't know what you plan on doing.
Running red lights, driving one-handed, swerving from one side of the road to the other. It's like this dude is a Texas driver. Walt's lucky he had plenty of practice driving like a maniac, because driving like that could have easily ended up killing someone. Yeah, that's me trying to do some foreshadowing here. If you know, you know. For someone who loves being in the driving seat, Walt is totally reckless. And in the real world, he'd be getting at least a year in prison with a $5,000 worth of fines, which is actually half the price of a Chrysler 300 today. With cash now raining from the sky thanks to his new criminal career, Walt needs a way of slipping it past the IRS. So not only can his family keep it, but also so he doesn't go to prison for creating money out of thin air. So, Better Call Saul.
Taste in women is the same as his taste in lawyers, only the very best, just the right amount of dirty.
This guy's pretty good. He should have his own show. Okay, so he's a little off with the laser tag, but Walt and Skyler settle on a nice car wash. The one Walt used to work at, actually.
Loan out. It's fine.
Who's loan out?
I have a guy.
Does your guy know the tax code and regulations in New Mexico?
Problem is, when Walter's earning like $500,000 a month, and later when he's earning millions, a small little car wash ain't really gonna cut it.
This is it. This is what you've been working for. I rented this place and I started bringing it here.
See, I told you. Some guy with a load of time on his hands worked out that the amount of money in that storage unit was around $69.3 million, which is enough to buy 86 and a half car washes. Skyler says, though, that money is unlaundered. But for the year or so Walt and her run the car wash, they do launder around $400,000. And for that, Walt would be staring down 3 years in the slammer and be fined double, or $800,000. Walt's next crime brings us to the episode Cancer Man, where Skyler is struggling to come to grips with his new illness.
Skyler.
Mom.
Hey. Shh, honey, it's okay. What's the matter? What is it? Ask him.
So he's just basically been given a death sentence, and you make him awkwardly tell his whole immediate family, including his son, when he clearly wasn't ready?
I have cancer. Lung cancer. It's bad.
Walt, on the other hand, is too consumed by the guilt of recently becoming a criminal at this point.
Please, no.
After having to deal with his family and that little scare with the law, Walt then has to deal with a big city finance bro trying to bully him over a parking space. But don't worry, karma comes back to bite Ken when Walt spots him much later at a gas station.
Yeah, dude, I'm not worried. I got the be on the other side of this one. You got this forward operation. You got the crap on.
Last time they met, Walt let Ken walk all over him, but this time, he's bringing the heat. Any human insufferable enough to have a personalized number plate like that would treat their car like an extended part of their body. So you know that's gotta hurt Ken. But what about an entire gas station that's seconds away from going up in flames? He's lucky this is only second-degree arson. It's still super serious, but halves his prison time. Talking of which, Mr. White would be slapped with 10 years inside for this, and for destroying Ken's 1996 BMW Camry, he'd also have to pay $35,000 in damages. Maybe one of the only crimes on Walter's list here that is arguably worth it. The whole reason Walt got into the meth business was cause of money. At first. So when it comes to setting up his own makeshift lab, he's hardly in a position to buy all the relevant equipment. However, as a high school chemistry teacher, he has access to all the equipment he could ever dream of. He even steals 2 gallons of hydrofluoric acid from the school so he can dissolve human remains. It's not long though until the DEA are hot on his tail when one of the chemical-proof masks was found in the desert.
Is that one we found way out in the boonies? That cook site? Holy shit. Lab says they pulled up an imprint of some old writing.
What's it say?
Property of J.P. Wynn Chemistry Lab. That's Walt School.
So Hank heads over to the school to do some snooping of his own.
The inventory says 8. Glassware looking a little sparse. Oh, yeah. Meth heads love to brew in this baby.
You'd think that after the scare of having your DEA brother-in-law come and question you at work, that it'd put Walt off stealing for good. But in the episode of No Rough Stuff type deal, Walt and Jesse take their thieving antics to a whole new degree.
Thermite.
And that will cut through a lock. Because this is supposed to be one big-ass lock.
The Germans had an artillery piece. It's the biggest in the world. It weighed 1,000 tons. You could drop bombs on it without ever disabling it. One man, just a bag of this, and he could melt right through 4 inches of solid steel.
This guy can do just about anything. How the hell was he just an ordinary school teacher? He's just manufactured a mild explosive to eat through a lock so the bear can seal a barrel of methylamine. I guess everything in theory is good with Walt. How about the execution?
Jesus.
What's going on?
Okay, so far so good. Now where's their truck to carry the barrel? You guys did bring a truck, didn't you? Okay, I guess not. The pair hightail it out of there, and just like that, they can get back to cooking. And I can get back to sentencing. As both counts of theft were done, and so of the aid of cooking crystal meth, the law will come down on Walt here like a ton of bricks. He can expect 3 years and a $10,000 fine for stealing from his school, with a further 8 years and $45,000 added to his sentence for grabbing the methylamine barrel. So in total, that's 11 years and $55K. It ain't cheap being a criminal. I showed you earlier that Walt has a huge stash of like $70 million hidden away in a storage container, and as we know, this is not the only money Mr. White has earned in the meth business. His first reward was chump change in comparison, but when you're desperate, you are desperate.
I'm selling that batch. That's why I'm here. Yeah, that's right. I didn't smoke at all.
After that, he was quickly earning millions, starting with his first shipment for Gus.
$1.2 million. Truck stop, 1 hour.
What?
1 hour, you in or out?
In, absolutely, but I just need a little more time.
If you miss it, don't ever show your face in here again.
Then he was offered $3 million just for 3 months of his time. After the whole ordeal with Gus, he went into the Empire business era and started earning his own millions. leading us all up to the way where Walt is losing his mind and burying his huge nest egg. So if I were to ask you what all this money has in common with each other, what would you say? If you said that it was taxable, ding ding ding, we have a winner. Walt hasn't paid a single dime on any of this cash. Walt should be getting no less than 12 years behind bars, and due to violating tax law, he'll have to pay back the $31.5 million he owes the country in restitution. He best get cooking. When Walter White wants something, Walter White usually gets it. And it doesn't matter who he steps on along the way, even the people who have only tried to help him.
You and me, we're done. What are you? Come on. Hey.
We're done when I say we're done.
It's crazy that Saul was kind of the good guy in that scene. Bit of a contrast from when they first met. However, the person who's usually on the receiving end of most of Walt's coercive control is his wife, Skylar, forcing her to stay with him, putting herself and her kids in danger, because as we all know, Walt is the danger.
I am not in danger, Skylar. I am the danger. I am the one who knocks.
This type of grade A emotional manipulation continues throughout the show and culminates in Skylar bending to Walt's will, becoming a good little wife who launders his money and does as he asks. But just as always, there's a breaking point.
Are you gonna run off to France? Are you gonna close the curtains, change the locks? Come on, Skylar. You wanna take away my children?
This is the best I could come up with, okay? I don't know what to do. I'm a coward. I can't stop laundering your money. I can't keep you out of this house. All I can do is wait.
Wait for what? What are you waiting for?
For the cancer to come back.
Emotionally abusing your wife to the point she's praying every night that your terminal illness returns is wild. A lot of people give her a hard time, but imagine being in that situation. Well, when it comes to what Walt does to Elliot and Gretchen, I'd think you'd rather be in Skylar's shoes. This is flashing forward to the end of the show where Walt is running out of cash, and in the hopes of getting his money to his kids, he turns his rich ex-friends to be his benefactor.
Come up from Marin, and Bill and Miriam Coe, and then we could do some sort of wine, and then...
Hello, Gretchen. Elliot. I really like your new house.
He was never gonna knock on their door and say please, was he? It's important to remember he's a fugitive here, and the cat is well out of the bag, so, you know, Gretchen doesn't scream just because he's dressed like a hobo.
That is $9,720,000.
Why is it here?
I earned it, and you're going to give it to my children. On my son's 18th birthday, you will give him this money, but with the hope that he uses it for his college education.
Look, $9 million is still a nice chunk of change in all fairness, and it's a pretty good idea asking two mega rich entrepreneurs to donate the funds. There's one problem though. How will Walt make sure they will go through with it?
I can't trust you to do this.
Absolutely you can.
Don't move. You don't want them to think that you're trying to get away. I gave it to the two best hitmen west of the Mississippi.
That's how. Yeah, he really does think of everything, doesn't he? Well, it's even better when you realize that those two hitmen are actually some familiar faces. Skinny Pete and Badger with laser pens. Now that's a way to save a few dollars to get some skittish billionaires to do your bidding. Sir, I don't know why I sound so I mean, it's kind of impressive. In reality, most of what Walt says could be construed as some form of coercive act, but you got three solid examples here. Taking into account the length of time he was coercing Skylar to force to use against Elliot and Gretchen, this behavior would net Heisenberg 14 years worth of hard time. Walt and Jesse didn't have Gus or Mike to depend on when they first got started in the drug business. Oh no, they had to do it all themselves. And when Jesse is too chicken to set up the distribution on his end again, together they go and meet the local drug dealing psycho Tuco Salamanca in the hopes he'll take their stock off them.
Look, you don't have to be here for this. Okay, I mean, seriously, I'm okay.
Are you okay, Walt? Your comedy nose away from being in a fancy dress. Well, his clothes are the least of his worries when Tuco sees how much product they've brought, yet somehow they still score a long-term deal.
Talk is talk, but owing me money, that's bad.
This is one of the only times in the show that Walt gets his own hands dirty by trying to directly distribute his product and would be classified as distribution of a Schedule II substance. And although small, the 0.52 pounds alone would earn him half the maximum sentence. The promise to deliver 2 pounds weekly with an upfront payment, that'll get him 15 years in jail with a $5 million fine. Look at it this way, Walt, prison clothes are much better than whatever the hell you were wearing here. The crimes are coming up thick and fast for Heisenberg, and looking at what we covered so far, the cruel Crystal Kingpin is already racked up over 66 years behind bars with a whopping $37.3 million in fines. The crazy thing is, he's not even in the full swing of things yet. What Walter White has up his sleeve is enough to send a chill up the spine of any Salamanca. Things are starting to ramp up now for Walt as we come to the episode Full Measure, where Walt is down to his last chance with Gus after dealing with two of his dealers on behalf of Jesse.
So if I may, I would like to review options with you. It seems to me you have two. Option A, you kill me right here and now.
Having her boss know that you aren't being straight with him is bad, but this is Gustavo Fring we're talking about here. Keeping Jesse's whereabouts secret is only going to make things worse for more people than Walt.
What am I, 8th grade hall monitor? Current whereabouts?
You are good right there. I'm looking for Pinkman. We both know why, don't we?
There are rules to this lawyer thing. If I give up Pinkman, you're going to be asking, what's to keep him from giving me up? Then where's the trust?
I trust the hole in the desert I'd leave you in.
Whilst Walter cooks now, he's had a new assistant in his lab in the form of Gail Bediger, and it becomes increasingly obvious to Walt that Gail isn't just his assistant, he's his replacement.
I got my old job back, at least until they kill me and Gail takes over. He's their boy. He asks a lot of questions about the cooking process. I got that guy Victor watching me, listening to every word I say.
With Jesse laying low and Walt nearing his own death, the two come up with an idea to prolong their partnership with Fring. And when Mike is moments away from pulling his trigger, Walt puts that plan into action. He lulls Mike and Victor into a false sense of security before giving Jesse the green light to erase their problem once and for all.
Jesse, do it now! Do it, bitch! Do it fast! Just what the hell was that?
You might want to hold off.
Why?
Your boss is gonna need me. 53 Juan Tabo, apartment 6. Yeah.
You gotta admit, it's pretty cold, in like every sense of the word. So will Jesse manage to sort out this unsuspecting chemist?
How can I help you? I got a lot of money. Don't do this.
Man, even when you know it's coming, you still hope Jesse don't pull the trigger, dude. Whatever you think of Gale, he didn't deserve that. Mr. White's part in this crime obviously cannot be understated. He orchestrated it, and it borderline forced someone to go through with murder. If this was in the real world, he'd be charged with conspiracy to commit murder and would get 20 years for planning to bump Gale off. When you got a brain as big as Walt's, normally every single avenue is covered or risk assessed, but he's still human and things still pop up that he didn't account for. Like when this whole thing got started and a simple cook turned into him fighting for his life with drug dealers.
I say we cap them both.
To get out of this unforeseen problem, Walt tricks the dealers into the RV under the guise of showing them how to cook crystal as well as he can. But what he really whips up is phosphine gas, which is highly toxic.
Move it, Holmes. You got all day.
This is where he ends up killing one of the dealers, and where Walt first starts tampering with evidence as he instructs Jesse to dissolve them in a vat of acid. Jesse might say he's got it, but we all know how that ends up.
I'm sorry, what were you asking me? That stupid plastic container I asked you to buy. You see, hydrofluoric acid won't eat through plastic. It will dissolve metal, rock, ceramic, so there's that.
Walt also has gotten a little more textbook with evidence tampering before, like the time the DEA confiscated Gus's laptop after his death, containing CCTV footage of him, Jesse, and Mike in the super lab. But how would they get to his laptop, you ask?
Commit a whole of the crime just to get this bomb of yours into evidence.
Who said bomb?
A magnet, though,
so
maybe
a bomb,
like...
then. Maybe we plant a bomb outside.
Or what about a magnet?
What? Magnet. What about it?
You know, Jesse's actually pretty smart, isn't he? You got Mike, a seasoned criminal, an ex-cop, and you got the biggest brained boffin, Walter White. Both of them together couldn't figure that out. So they put Jesse's plan in place.
Let's go.
Hang on.
Something so simple works so well, and the footage from the laptop is well and truly destroyed. Although having footage from the super lab is one thing, leaving it sitting under the industrial laundrette is just asking to be busted. So like you just seen, Walt prepares to destroy the evidence. may think he's been being clever here, but really he's only doing himself more damage. Every count of evidence tampering he's found guilty of will add 8 years per count to his charge sheet. And in this case, it's 3, meaning just for trying to be the big I am, he's earned himself an extra 24 years in jail. Oh, and each count would cost him $15,000 in fines, totaling $45,000. Not so clever now, are we? As we've already talked about, Walter White is no stranger to picking up things that don't belong to him. In the episode Dead Freight, though, Walt puts together an operation that'll become the biggest robbery in history. It starts when he, Mike, and Jesse are trying to find a solution to their methylamine problem and find that Lydia has butchered their chances of getting what they need.
I know what you're thinking. I'm telling you, I didn't plant that thing.
Shut up.
He's probably thinking some crew planted, looking for a weak spot to pull a heist to that warehouse. He's gonna wire it out the wazoo. Cameras, the whole 9 yards.
Her supply is useless to us now.
With her life on the line and Walt not wanting to deal with a break in cooking, the three listen to her idea of getting all the methylamine they could ever dream of.
Want to talk methylamine? Tell your partner to stop threatening me, and let's talk.
Talk about what? You can't even get us a single barrel.
I'm talking about an ocean of this stuff.
The ocean she talks about is actually a train. A train with over 1,000 gallons of methylamine. There's only one problem. It's a train, it moves, and it's manned. But as ever, Walt likes a challenge.
It's a dead zone. No automated supervision system, no alarms.
What about cell phones?
No cellular either. It's the perfect place. Siphon off as much methylamine as you can carry and get away.
Assuming we could stop a moving train, I can't believe that they would advertise their contents.
A final manifest gets uploaded to my company's server. That'll give you at least 6 hours of lead time.
So Walt pulls together a team alongside Jesse and Mike to pull off what can only be described as a hit and hope. They plan to use a siphon to take the methylamine from the train and replace it with water. As for the crew, Walt comes up with the idea of occupying them with a fake breakdown of the tracks, hopefully giving them enough time to do their thing.
You guys want to sleep with the switch.
Considering the size and risk of the operation, things run pretty smoothly. That starts to change though when a good Samaritan shows up and tows the decoy's truck off the tracks. With 100 gallons left to go, does Walter stick or twist?
Word right now, you are gonna get us all busted.
Ready? Yeah.
Hey! Hold it steady! No!
Walt holds his nerve and gets all 1,000 gallons. The team seals up the train in time for its takeoff, which for Jesse is a little too close for comfort. Apart from that, though, it's a mission success, and once again, Walter comes out on top as Big Dog. So after the desert dust has settled, Walt and the team come away with over $296 million worth of methylamine in terms of liquid to product, that is. Overall, a heist 4 times bigger than any in human history. As you guys have guessed, this one's gonna be big! There's obviously nothing to actually compare it to, but it would fall into the crime of grand larceny, and for a crime that big, Walt would be getting 25 years as standard, and he'd have to pay back double the amount he stole in fines. So that would be $592 million. He wouldn't have been able to pay that back even if he kept his shares in Gray Matter. Talk about eye-watering. Walt is usually the guy behind the scenes, pulling the strings, but in the episode Better Call Saul, he gets his hands dirty when trying to change Saul's mind about getting Badger out of jail. Thing is, Badger knows too much about Walt's identity, so he can't have him squeal into the DEA. So he goes to Goodman's office, posing as Uncle.
They're after some mystery man, goes by the name Heisenberg. Seems young Brandon may have some information that could lead to his arrest. And this is good news, I mean...
Look,
Why does Walt keep dressing like that when he's trying to be covert? Oh, I know, I'll dress like a walking picnic blanket. That'll keep people off my scent. Anyway, Walt steps up his bid to get Badger to keep quiet. Somehow, though, Saul, of all people, refuses to take the bribe. So there's only one option left.
Hey, Francesca, how about I follow you home? No, for safety. God, you are killing me with that booty.
I was gonna suggest begging, but kidnapping works as well.
No, it wasn't me. It was Ignacio. He's the one. Siempre soy amigo. Shut up. I just speak English. Lalo didn't send you? No, Lalo?
Who?
Oh, thank God.
Those of you who've watched Better Call Saul, you'll know who he's talking about there. But yeah, they kidnap him and sit him in front of his own would-be grave. They would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for Walt's meddling cough. Well, they get the job done in the end as Saul becomes part of their criminal network. Although, if you thought about kidnapping a man at gunpoint is bad, what about the time Walt kidnaps his own daughter? After everything with Hank in the desert, Walt storms home to get the family to pack up and leave for a new life with him. There's only one problem though. They kind of don't want to go.
Dad, wait. What happened?
Get out.
I promise you, we will figure this out.
Enough.
What are you doing?
Skylar.
Get out!
Yeah, both Skylar's knife and her words cut Walt deep, and he has no other choice than to hit her where it really hurts, by taking Holly. Just like anything with Walt, he didn't mean to hurt his daughter. She was just a pawn in his game to torture Skylar, and when that job was done, he had nowhere left to turn. He makes sure Holly gets home safe.
Hey.
I mean, of course, there was more to it than that, but this isn't about the story of Breaking Bad. I could be here for hours. Doing the right thing in the end does not mean Walt is getting away with that, by the way. 2 counts of kidnapping, 1 at gunpoint, and 1 of a minor is going to rack some serious time in the slammer for Walt. You get 20 years for Saul and 8 for Holly. That's nearly 3 decades for 2 things he really kind of didn't need to do. I mean, like, he didn't need to do any of this. This whole show could have been avoided, hadn't it not been for his pride. When you've lived your whole life studying and understanding the complexity of chemistry of all things, you're gonna pick up a thing or two about what makes things go boom. And Walt isn't afraid of bringing out the chemical big guns when he needs to. Like the time he took some fulminated mercury to Tuco's patch after he ripped Jesse off.
I beat the piss out of your mule boy. And you bring me more, man?
You got one part of that wrong. This is not meth.
Good to say, Walt's point was made, and Tuco's tail is firmly put between his legs. Despite that being epic, I know you're waiting for the most explosive scene of the show, when Walt finally takes down Gus in the episode Face Off. Although before he gets his man, he needs to find someone who hates Gus just as much as he does.
I know you despise me, and I know how badly you want to see me dead, but I know a man whom you hate even more. I am offering you an opportunity for revenge.
With Hector now willing to help, Walt gets him involved with the DEA to arouse suspicion that he's going to snitch on Gus. But in reality, he just uses it as a chance to tell him what he thinks of him.
S. First letter S. A. Second letter U. K. A. Y.
All right, that's enough.
Yeah, thanks. I can spell.
Their plan works, and Gus's foot soldiers find out about Hector's visit to the DEA office, prompting a swift visit from the man himself. Gus plans on administering Hector with a lethal injection, to keep a lid on his rat problem. Little does he know, though, that under Hector's chair is a bomb made and planted by Walt, waiting for the perfect moment to let loose. And suddenly, the episode's name makes a whole lot of sense. Manufacturing 2 lots of serious explosives and committing literal terrorism that resulted in the death of 3 people is no laughing matter, though. For the manufacturing of the explosives, Walt would be slapped with 3 years for the mercury and 6 years for Hector's bomb, an additional 3 years for using the fulminated mercury, and a further 25 for committing an act of fatal terrorism. Clocking in at a grand total of 37 years plus $375,000 in fines for the destruction of both Tuco's building and the care home. We've seen Walt conspire to kill an innocent chemist, but what about the time he put a plan together to kill 10 people in the episode Gliding Overall? Basically, he has the problem of 10 men in custody from the old regime that puts his new business in danger. So he heads on over to Todd's uncle to see if his connections can take care of their problem.
Hitting him in 3 separate jails all within 2 minutes? Whacking bin Laden wasn't this complicated.
But like everything in his life so far, Walt finds a way, and he sets up the hitting spree with Jack and the gang and waits for it all to unfold.
Just have often nothing I have found on the ground.
Yeah, imagine that another 9 times. Some of them far worse than that too. While these men lose their lives, Walt is waiting in his living room, not in fear or anxious whatsoever, but with a glee that he orchestrated it all.
All over again.
Yes, it's done.
Just because Walt hired Jack to kill his men does not mean he won't be feeling the full force of the law here. Solicitation of murder is as good as murder, or as bad, meaning Walt has earned himself 20 years per victim, totaling an even 200 years in the clink for this grand master plan. You best hope no one puts together a plan like his. Otherwise, he'll be enemy number one. He's been a scientist. He's been a teacher. To some, even an artist. But really, at heart, we all know Walter White is a cook. And no, I don't mean he bakes bread in his spare time. You know exactly what I mean. We're over 20 minutes in this video. Together with Jesse, the pair cook crystal meth, and it's one of Walt's most committed crimes. They started small in an RV. Then they ramped things up and they met a guy with his own distribution chain.
201.6.
Better over than under.
Over by 1.5 pounds.
We ship it as is.
From under 10 pounds for their first cook to over 200 when they got their own lab, not bad. But having your own lab does stop you from having needless problems, like in the episode 4 Days Out, where Walt and Jesse get stranded in the desert thanks to Jesse leaving the keys in the RV's ignition.
Did your mother drop you on your head when you were a baby?
You were the one that made me move the keys in the first place, remember?
Jesse, don't leave the keys in the ignition the entire 2 days.
You chalk this one up to bad luck, maybe, but when Walt whips out the generator to kickstart the RV, Jesse makes a mess of that too.
What's wrong with this thing?
Now really pull, not like a girl.
Pull this.
Yeah, real nice, Pinkman. Well, after another day of feeling sorry for themselves and Walt transforming into one of the 3 wise men, Jesse finally comes in handy and gives Mr. White an idea to get him out of Dodge.
You said it yourself.
Robot?
A battery.
Move!
Walt uses his big old brain and manages to pull the pair from the brink of death. Yeah, a lab is 150 times better than a stinking RV, but you know what's better than both? Houses. Okay, maybe that's not as good as a lab, but they also cooked in houses. You get what I mean? There have been countless cooks by Walter on the show, but as a best guess, he worked for Gus for like 5 months, producing hundreds of pounds of meth weekly, and for them alone, that'd probably clock in at around 63-ish cooks. But then all of his RV trips, the cooking with Vamonos pests, you're looking at more like 128 cooks. For that, Walt would be lucky to get 15 years per cook, factoring in things like the scale of operations, the money he received, etc. That would tally up to 1,920 years in Albuquerque's most secure complex. When Walt transforms into his Heisenberg gimmick, something switches in him and all his humanity drains away. There's no easy way to say this. Walter White is a serial killer, and through the course of the show's 5 seasons, he's either killed or contributed heavily in the deaths of 201 people. Some we've already touched on, others we haven't. Either way, let's take a look at a few of the most important ones here. His first victims were Emiliano and Crazy 8, with Emiliano being wiped out with some deadly phosphine gas, and for Crazy 8, it was strangulation.
The moment I do, are you gonna stick me with that broken piece of plate?
Next death isn't one he directly caused, but certainly one he could have prevented. Jane's overdose. Man, as much evil as this man is guilty of, I genuinely think this might be the worst thing he's ever done. Especially when her death leads to her dad making a fatal mistake that costs 167 people of their lives.
Alpha, contact Albuquerque Center 13. Juliet, Mike 21, do you have that traffic at your 9 o'clock?
Then Walt has a case of friendly fire as he runs down 2 of Gus's mules. We've already touched on Gus, Gale and Mike's men in jail, but not Mike himself. And look, as much as I love Mike, his death is totally worth it for his final line.
Let me die in peace.
And at last, but certainly not least, is Walt's final master plan. Taking down Jack Welker and his gang and freeing Jesse. How, you ask? Some big scientific bomb or his brain power to outsmart them all? Nah, with a big gun. Jesse takes care of Todd and Walt finishes off Jack, but there's one more person to take care of. Think of her as a bonus, Lydia.
Is he gone?
Yeah, it's done.
Todd, who is this?
It's Walt. How are you feeling?
Kind of under the weather? That would be the ricin I gave you. I slipped it into that stevia crap. Goodbye, Lydia.
Now that's how you tie up loose ends. And look, there's obviously a few kills here that we didn't talk about, but I'd be here all day listing them. But we do know that 201 people died at the hands of Walter White, and at 30 years per person, his extensive killing spree totals up to a mind-boggling 6,030 years in prison. Not even the great Saul Goodman could get him out of that one. After looking at all the facts and figures, the cooks and the kills, I think it's safe to say that Walter Hartwell White would be a very lucky man to escape his endless charge sheet with anything less than 8,360 years in a dark, damp Albuquerque cell, with Heisenberg's bank also taking a hell of a beating as his total amassed fines stand at a staggering $629,815,000. And to think he went into this to earn money. So in the end, I'd say he definitely broke bad, becoming one of the most infamous TV anti-heroes of all time, and yet he's nowhere near some of the vile villains that are still out there, like these guys on your screen now. Go on, click one of them. You know you want to see them get exactly what they deserve.